microphones.
Yeah,
Now,
that was the next thing I wanted to talk
okay,
about.
people use lavalier microphones because I don't know why they use them. If I was to give a presentation and I used a lav, I would know to project and enunciate.
Yeah.
Because those microphones tend to sound a little dull when you put them down here because the high frequencies don't quite do what the low frequencies do.
Exactly.
And plus, it's this far away. The headset mic is a great option, but you know, you got some people who don't know if they haven't been cleaned or they think they haven't been cleaned or they're in their hair or there's, you know, they might not want to work, but headset microphones work awesome because the mic is always here.
They're my favorite.
Yeah.
If you're going to go wireless, they're
If
my
you're going to go
favorite.
wireless, headset microphones are the mic to use. Lavaliers, we cross our fingers with.
Yeah,
and if you
lavaliers are
say, if
scary.
you have a lavalier in your chest and you go, listen, from my perspective, you hit
Yeah.
the mic, and also if you turn your head to one side, you go lower in volume, you know. It might sound okay, but it'll sound low in volume. My preference is a podium microphone.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's a lot of presentation training out there today saying, get away from the podium's passe or whatever. I don't think so. The podium works for a reason. It's an authoritative visual because you're at a podium.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're always on microphone. I mean, if you talk loud enough. Some people don't know how to talk and project. Or they get this far away from a podium microphone.
This is the thing. If you're using a podium microphone, any microphone, you want to speak into the microphone. Someone said to me at a conference that her husband had told her he was a sports broadcaster and he had told her never to speak directly into a mic so that you don't pop your P's and you don't get plosives. But you still want to speak close to the microphone because there's other ways to avoid popping your P's. For example, if your microphone is close and you angle it away from your mouth slightly.
Yeah, or if you
won't
angle
pop.
it like this and you talk across the top of it, you won't pop the P's.
Exactly.
Right?
We still need the speaker to be close enough to the microphone that we can get a good solid signal from the source. The microphones can be turned up in sensitivity, but the higher the sensitivity is, the higher the risk we have for things like feedback happening.
Yeah.
And when we have people wearing lavaliers that are all the way down here, for example, and then they start talking really quietly, it gets really difficult to get a proper sound and a proper signal level because it's just we're overcompensating for the lack of audio information when you can't boost what's not there. And the same thing goes for a podium. If you're at a podium and you start leaning away from the mic, or if you're just in general standing more than a foot away from the microphone, you definitely want to reposition where you're standing or where the mic is and make sure you're on axis, as they say, so that we can get the proper sound for you, because really people are there to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
And if it's not clear and audible, then people are at a total loss.
Yeah, and when we set up a sound system, we're most of the time setting it up to the client's specifications.
Right.
We offer them choices of how to set up a sound system. For example, my favorite sound system for a conference is using a distributed ceiling system
Yes.
in conjunction with a left and right front of house, a stereo set of speakers. However, they all have different directionalities. Like the Bose L1s, they got 180 degrees directionality.
Right.
So they're going like that. So when you got a wireless microphone, you know, you got danger zones. So don't go too close to the speaker. Ask the audiovisual person, what's my danger zone? And they could say, from this side of the stage to this side of the stage. But if you go in here, we just got to turn you down because it's just going to feed back.
Right, and with the Bose L1s that we use, we have two, one on left and one right. They're both projecting at 180 degrees. So basically everything in front of the speaker is the danger zone, with the center being the least dangerous. But you basically want to try and stay behind the speakers. If you're behind them, there is no danger zone, essentially. So having a lavalier is sometimes helpful because it can let you be a little more interactive in your presentation, but you definitely don't want to be wandering around the room without knowing things like where the danger zones are. Yeah. And I think a lot of speakers seem to feel that feedback is caused by two microphones being beside each other. It's not.
It's not.
It's a microphone hearing itself through a speaker, that it's hearing itself through the speaker, it's coming out of creating a feedback loop.
It's creating a loop, yeah.
So once you get in those danger zones, that's what causes the issue. And sometimes people don't pick up on that, I guess, because they're nervous and they're maybe really into their own presentation. But if you're in a danger zone, there's very little we can do we can EQ, but we can only EQ so far before we start to affect how the voice sounds to the audience. And I don't want to be, when I personally mix, I don't want to be changing the timbre and the sound of people's voices while they're in the middle of a presentation.
Hey, Darius.
Hey, Darius.
Yeah, no, that being said, yeah, every time, like if somebody goes, oh, I want 6 microphones on stage, it's like, okay, we can do 6 microphones, but we can't have them all at the same volume at the same time, because every time you double your microphones, you risk feedback. So, yeah, we can handle it. We're at the board, and we do a process called gain writing, our technique called gain writing, where we keep the mics down a little bit, except for the person who's talking, and when somebody else talks, we raise their volume if you have too many microphones. Sometimes you got 3 or 4 microphones, it's not a big deal. But when you have like 4 or more, you got to watch if people aren't talking loud enough, you got to turn them up and then turn other people down, so we do a little bit of a dance. The other thing is, I've had people at the podium talk, far away from the microphone, and then the meeting planner or event planner would come up to me and say, can you turn them up? And I'm like, if I turn them up, I'm going to turn the HVAC system up.
Right,
I'm going to turn up
exactly.
the coughs and sneezes in the audience, the paper rustling.
It's the whole room.
Yeah,
that is
I'm
picking up.
basically amplifying the room. The trick is they gotta get close to the microphone. Well, we mentioned that before, so that's a topic.
Well,
okay.
what I like to do actually when we have multiple people speaking, if everyone speaks into the mic picks up the proper signal when it needs to. So what I like to do with our board that we have, that QSC Touch Mix 16, is I engage the gates on everyone's microphone when they're speaking, and I set the threshold fairly low, but high enough that it doesn't pick up anybody else beside them. And provided that they speak into the mic, I basically am gain writing without having to gain write.
With the gates automatically.
With the gates, exactly.
I've had that happen where people would go, they'd answer a question from the audience, and then they'd go, well, and the first part of it was cut out because the gate threshold was too high. So yeah, I personally, I would take the gates off and do gain writing, unless I tried it out, it seemed to be working. I'd be like, okay, I'll leave the noise gates on there because noise gates can be very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the setup. But again, if everyone's using the gear correctly, it gives us more options to play around to see like what will give us the cleanest signal in this situation.
Like I'd prefer to get microphones as switches, but that's not always the case. But if people had microphones as switches, like if I had my own kit, I've got a couple with switches, and I give that to people. And I try to ask them, okay, when you want to talk, just turn your mic on, right? But that doesn't really work because people forget.
Yeah, exactly. Like sometimes people forget how to use the microphone, or they don't ask and they assume.
Or they do this. Listen, I got a question about, it's like, that is where the microphone's picking up sound, so you got to go, I have a question,
or when they hold it out in front, and
it's this far away.
The capsule's like down here, that's not going to give you what you need. That's basically just amplifying, like you said, the HVAC.
So wireless microphones, and I got the Sennheisers, and they have an on-off button, which anybody using it shouldn't touch, and they have a mute switch on the side, and that's amber when it's muted. That button is very important to mute, so if we basically give, like from Dan's conferences and for the Canadian Institute that I worked for, we would give them the microphones and say, when someone asks a question, press this so it turns green. When they stop asking a question and they're getting a response, press it so it turns red or amber. So there's, you don't walk out of the room with a live mic, or you don't walk in front of a speaker. I've had that before, where somebody walked in front of a loudspeaker and it went, wee! And somebody said, I don't know, there was distortion in the room and we don't know what caused it. And I said, what did it sound like? And it went, wee! And that's feedback. What happened? Well, it happened when the person was near the speaker. Yeah, they forgot to mute the mic and they walked in front of the speaker.
Right.
We can only do so much. We're not magicians, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why, like, knowing what the gear is what you have at your disposal, at least in terms of microphones, knowing how to use them properly.